Hi guys, and welcome back to Hilltop Farm, and welcome to another episode of From the Hen House. Okay, in this week's episode, I'm not actually going to do a chick update or anything like that. The chicks are fine, there's nothing to actually be concerned about. But I'm doing something a little bit different. In the past, with our chicken eggs, I've always put them in a different incubator, and I've always had them on a turner. And we've never really been happy with our hatch rate. I think once we had about a 75% hatch rate, but normally it's around 50%. And I'm talking about those percentages are based on the fertile eggs, not the number of eggs that go in. Hypothetically, if we get 24 come in, 18 are fertile, we'll probably get 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there actually hatch. Which is great, don't get me wrong. We're happy to have any hatch that want to hatch, but I know other people have greater success. Now, you'll just excuse me too, I've got a terrible cold, and I'm going to have to keep sipping my coffee to keep everything lubricated so that I can talk to you. Yeah, we normally get about 50%, as I was saying. I know other people get much more than that quite often, and we've tried all different things to try and work out what we're doing wrong, what other people must do differently. And one thing we have noticed is we have another room in the house where we put the incubators, and it's not really a room we go into very often. So there is a tendency, I think, to be out of sight, out of mind when we're busy. We know the turners are turning for us. We know that the incubators have alarms in case temperature drops or humidity. And so we can hear those alarms, in the rest of the house. And I'll actually take back what I just said. It's got an alarm for the temperature, but doesn't have an alarm for the humidity, is what I meant to say. It's purely and simply, the humidity is based, in this particular incubator, is based on you checking every day. And there have been many times where we've checked it and it's dried out. And I couldn't tell you when it dried out. I couldn't tell you whether it was 2 hours ago or 24 hours ago. Heavens, it could even have been 2 days ago sometimes. I don't know. Because we mark on our calendar. We never leave it for more than 3 days without checking it. But time can run away with you. And so although it's on the calendar when we've got to do lockdowns and the important dates, the days in between, they just fall one into the other. Now we know from our own experience that duck eggs do take a lot more care than chicken eggs. And that method of hatching them just is not successful at all. You get the odd one or two hatch, but not much. They need to be loved a bit more. The other thing we have noticed too, and we've not ever, touch wood, ever had a problem with our chicken eggs, but periodically we've had a duck egg go bad. I think we've had maybe 3 in the time that we've been doing this. As a matter of fact, anyone that's been following the across the duck pond series will know that we currently have duck eggs, Indian runners, in the incubator at the moment. And just a couple of days ago, one of them went bad. But you see, the beauty is with the duck eggs, because we do it differently, it means you're forced at least a couple of times a day to physically open the thing up and look at them. And with the duck eggs, you can smell as soon as you open it. You know, hang on, something's on the turn here, and you can go through each egg and sniff it. And in each case, I've been able to narrow it down, except the last case. I thought I worked out which one it was, but wasn't sure. Put it back, and then checked 8 hours later, and I was right. It was the one I thought it was, and it was quite obvious that 8 hours later. But if those had been in the turner, all of them would have exploded, because duck eggs turn so quickly. And once they start to smell, you've got less than 24 hours before they go kaboom. So you've got to get them out of there. And with the method we have been using for the chickens, they go off bang. So that's another reason we do the ducks differently. So anyway, what we do with the ducks, I don't know if you can see these incubators here. These are very similar to our other one, except we've taken the turners out. And I don't know if you can see in there, but we have plastic trays that we call our nests. We put so-called sawdust in them, and then we literally take a clutch of eggs and we make a nest in there. We do what everyone else does. We put no on one side, X on the other, and 5 in the morning, which is when we get up, 1 in the afternoon, and then 9 o'clock at night before we go to bed, the eggs get turned till they obviously hit their lockdown period. And that way you are forced to obviously handle them, smell them. You can see, because these do have humidity gauges on them, you're better able to adjust your humidity. So as you can see, the one over there on the left hand side of the screen, we've got our humidity sitting on 62, because that's the one with our duck eggs in it. It's on 62. Now on the extreme left at the bottom it says 23. That means it's just finished its 23rd day of incubation, currently on 24. When it's at day 25, that lot go into lockdown, because duck eggs take 28 days. And we like to keep the humidity between 55 and 65 during the initial incubation, and obviously crank it right up to at least 70 to 80 during lockdown. So that's what's going on with that one. With chickens, because we've never had to worry about the humidity before, because it's not been an issue, done a lot of research online, watched what a lot of other people do. The general consensus seems to be the 45 to 55%. So I think we're going to aim for 50. Anyone thinks that that's incorrect or does it differently, or by all means, comments down below. We're open to suggestions on this to see what you do and what's successful in your homestead. But that's what we're going to do to start with till we hear any different. They've only just been put in here. Normally I would have the incubator all cleaned and on 24 hours beforehand, get the humidity right and what have you. But we've all been sick this week, We've had puppies due, we've had a couple of sleepless nights with puppies being born. We're all absolutely exhausted, and we get a phone call first thing this morning from a guy, and I've had barred rock eggs on order from him for ages. Oh yes, I've suddenly got them, you want to come and get them? So yes, we had a couple of hour drive this morning to go and get them, and we put them in. Now, as you can see, our humidity's on 69%, way too high. It's not going to stay at that level. It is at that level because we've just washed the incubator. Within 24 hours it should come down, and if it doesn't, I'll be lifting the lid and trying to get it down and work out why it's not staying down. What this is about is just letting you guys know that we're trying something new. We're going to be rotating them 3 times a day, same as we do our duck eggs. With our duck eggs, a couple of times a day we squirt them, we give them a misting of water when we turn them, and that mimics the mother's natural, going for a swim and then getting back on the nest with wet feathers. So with them we try and mimic mother duck as best as possible. So with these guys, obviously we're going to try and mimic mother chicken as much as possible, who doesn't obviously go swimming. So we won't be spraying them at all. We'll be keeping them nice and dry in their nest in there, turning them 3 times a day. I'm sure my crazy wife will walk past and cluck at them periodically, which she actually does do. She clucks at them and she quacks at the duck eggs, and there's nothing so funny as in that final few or day or two where they start pipping and they're zipping and they're starting to hatch, and you can hear her clucking and duck quacking, and she tells me that she's their mother encouraging them to come out of the shell. So there you go, that's what I live with, lunatics. Anyway, I just think it's a sign that she's had way too many chemicals in her food, and we should have started homesteading long before we did, but damage perhaps is done. Okay, join us on our journey. I'll be updating you every week with these barred rock eggs, and we shall see we will see our level of fertility, we shall see our level of hatch rate. The guy actually gave us 13 instead of a dozen, because just before we got there one of them laid another egg, so he gave us that. And they range actually from 10 days old through to freshly laid this morning, and they are marked accordingly. So it's going to be very interesting to see if that makes a difference. A lot of people think it does. I kind of think it's a bit of an old wives' tale, that. I mean, obviously I realise there's a cut-off point, but I think it's actually a lot longer than most of us realise. I think there's a reason why Mother Nature actually makes eggs naturally last for weeks and weeks and weeks. There'd be no need in nature to have the eggs, stay edible and fresh that long. I know we had some in the chicks we have outside. We actually had some Wyandottes that were actually dated, and I was a bit dubious because I know a couple of those were over 10 days old when we got them, and because we had to travel quite a way and we had a bit of a rough drive home with them, we left them 24 hours before we set them, and we didn't have a very high hatch rate with those for some reason, but we did get a couple, and I did notice that one of the ones that hatched was the oldest egg in the lot. So, I'm not 100% sure, but anything that doesn't hatch in this lot, I'll let you know the age of them, and we'll see if we can see any pattern there. Okay, so join me next week when we should do our first candling and hopefully have some idea of what's fertile and what's not, and perhaps do our first thinning out of the infertile, if any. Fingers crossed they're all fertile. Okay, so hope everything's going well on your homestead. Thank you for sharing a little bit of ours today. If you like the video, give us a big thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other videos. And until you come back next week to see how these guys are going, it's goodbye from Hilltop Farm. See ya.